All right, this is pretty cool because we are business partners in this and we're working together,
Yep.
but you have an awesome story. And so as we're getting our first interviews, John's story is so interview worthy. And so we're going to dive deep into that with how he started, how he's been niching down, and then the success that he's had from getting really specific, not just with his marketing agency, but then furthermore, the growth that has come from that just organically over time. So, yeah, we'll dive into that.
Awesome.
So, tell us what you do exactly.
Yeah, so I run an agency called Asset Growth, and we work with storage facilities and essentially help them get more rentals using Google SEO, Google Ads. So we'll take over their marketing and basically run it for them to help them scale their facilities that they're either buying or building out their portfolio with.
Okay, so it's now really specific to self storage, but that sort of marketing, that lead gen, all of that back end can be done in any business, right?
Yeah, and actually, when I started this, I was actually more general. I was against niching down for a while. I just thought I don't want to limit myself or be stuck working in one industry. What I found was it was hard to generate leads and actually do marketing when I was trying to just offer SEO and Google Ads to everybody, where you just blend in with everybody else. So once I niched down into storage, then I was able to all my marketing, all my lead generation is all geared towards storage companies. So I could really tailor all that. And it's been helping a lot in terms of generating leads. And I finally have a consistent way of getting leads each month through niching down. So it took a while to get there, but I think it's really important when you're looking at really any service-based business.
Okay, so let's break this down a little bit because I think of myself as like the idea guy, right? Like I have way too many ideas, but then that lead gen world is almost confusing to me, right? You start talking SEO and Meta and Google Ads, and I don't even know
Yeah.
where to start. Can you simplify like what the process is that you do, and like what that translates to somebody's business?
Yeah. So I think the key with figuring out lead generation, because like you said, there's a million things you can do, is trying to figure out what should I actually focus on. That's always the hard part. There's so many different channels, there's social media, video, search. So it starts with who you're targeting. That's where niching down helps. Because once you know exactly who you're targeting, you could try to reverse engineer where are they online. So with storage, what I found, a lot of them still use Google pretty heavily. So they actually do search for information about marketing, how they can market their facility. They're on YouTube as well. So I really focus there and I'm able to just create content and teach basically exactly how I would do SEO and Google ads for them. And a lot of them, as they're trying to learn themselves, they'll reach out to me to book a call and ultimately essentially move forward with marketing. So I think really knowing your audience is the first step. And then you start to back into like, where are they hanging out online? And that's usually where you should start in terms of choosing an area to focus. Because if you try to do everything, it's just too hard to stick with. So you really got to pick one or two channels, get really good at those, get leads coming in, and then expand into other ones.
Okay, but with specific clients that you have, let's take storage because this is what you're an expert in. What are you doing with those clients? A second ago we were doing keyword search and we were talking
Yeah.
about bookkeeping services and bookkeeping for contractors and bookkeeping for that. So we find those keywords using software of what people are searching for, popular items people are searching for, and then you integrate SEO into their website, into their blogs. Yeah, what are the three, four main things that you're doing for these businesses?
And this is where, again, niching down helps because you could actually productize your service because it's so repeatable. For storage, every company really needs the same thing, just in a different city. So SEO and Google Ads are probably the most important things. For SEO, it really starts with, yeah, understanding what the keywords are. The nice thing about niching down again is you don't have to do a lot of keyword research. We already know what people search and we just apply the different cities. So once you know that, then typically what we like to do is go into optimizing the website. There's a lot of different techniques and tactics, but essentially your location pages for your facility are going to be the main page you want to focus on. That's going to be what shows up highly on Google. So a lot of things you can do, like we won't get too deep into the weeds, but the title tag and the meta description are essentially ad copy that shows up on Google. So you really want to focus on that. That's something we'll do for every client. Most of them haven't even put any thought into it. So really getting those basics in place. Then you get into link building, which gets into a whole other avenue of SEO. It's basically what happens off of your website. So the more websites that link to you, they're essentially endorsing you. So for storage, nobody really has any backlinks. So a lot of times, even if you just do a little bit of that work, you're miles ahead of the competitors. So that's really important. And then for local search, which is ranking in the map listings, which is always critical. You have your Google business profile that you need to get set up. I usually just tell people to just fill that out fully. Everything Google offers and asks in the Google business profile, just fill that in. Then you get into other tactics too from there. But that's like the basics. And then usually from there, it's just really looking at the data to try to figure out, okay, what do we need to do next? Where are we not getting movements, and making the adjustments from there.
Man, this is why it's so important to have somebody that knows what they're talking about doing this sort of stuff, because I'm involved in this world. We have businesses, we have things going on. You and I are partners,
Yeah.
and I probably caught like half of what you said. So that's why it's so important to talk to somebody that has this background. And with that, I have one really stupid question that I think other people might have, and then I want to get into the origin for you. So, can you define SEO for us?
So the way I think about SEO is really what do people actually want when they're doing the search on Google? So when you think about that, when you try to manipulate and do certain tactics that may work in the short term, usually in the long term, those kind of things don't work. So really, if you break it down to that level, like when someone's doing a search for storage units in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, what do they actually want to see show up? So starting with that mindset can get you pretty far. Then there's like techniques and all sorts of best practices you could look into with SEO. But at a basic level, it's really trying to think about what does a user actually want when they're doing this particular search. And you can apply that to any keyword that you want to show up for. Is when someone searches that, what would be a good result? And then reverse engineering that and actually creating a page on your website or a piece of content with that in mind. You can even look at, one of the things I like to do is just look at the top 10 articles that are showing up on Google and just reverse engineer, what are they all doing? And that'll get you pretty far, because you could start to see Google's telling you, here's the 10 best pages that we have on this keyword. So analyzing each one, you'll start to pick up on things they're doing in common. And then you need to think about, what can I do to be a little different too? That's always the hard part. You don't want to just copy, but there's certain things you can copy and then figure out, what do I add to this? So there's a lot of ways. SEO gets pretty broad, but really at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do.
Okay, so a business has a service and they want people to come up on their site to use their service.
Yeah.
So you reverse engineer what's working for other people in order to position these businesses with their services to show up first on Google.
Yeah, that's a big part of it. And there's kind of two phases. One is, what are people searching when they're actively in the market for what you do? So they might be typing, if you're a bookkeeper, bookkeeping services in a certain city or something like that. So you definitely want to target those, because that's what's going to lead to most business in the short term. It's usually the most competitive as well, because everybody wants to show up for those kind of keywords, because when someone's actually looking for that service, they're basically telling you they want it. So it's really important to rank for those. Then the phase two is more informational stuff. What are people searching for when they're just learning about your industry? And that's usually where like blogs and different content you post on your website comes in. That positions you as an authority, because only a small percentage of people are actually going to be in the market to buy what you're offering. So if you could reach all these other people that are researching stuff, when they're actually in the market to buy, you're already considered in that conversation and they know you. So I like to group those separately, but both are important. Sometimes people only focus on one or the other, and you're missing out on a lot of potential that you could be getting.
Man, that is so layered. I love that you know how to do that and that you're an expert in that, because it's so beyond me. So I appreciate you, and that's awesome. So let's back up a little bit. There's a really cool story that we're going to get to that I want you to talk about on this process of you niching down and the success that's come from it. But let's back up. What's the origin story? How did you get started on this? And then how did the agency that you have just grow from that starting point?
So the way I started, I was actually working in retail, and I just was on YouTube and an SEO video popped up. And I watched it, didn't know anything about SEO. I was like, oh, this looks interesting. And watched the video and I was like, oh, that's cool. You could do some work online and get people to find your website and sell things and build out companies based on that. So I found a job at a local agency. I was like, I should just dive into it instead of just trying to do it on my own. Let me work for an agency for a little while. And that was, I think, a big benefit. I could have tried to just start a business there, but I didn't really have the experience. Working for the agency, I was working on like hundreds of clients. So you just get so much experience so quickly. That really helped me get started.
Did you learn from them?
Yeah, I did. I did learn a lot from them. So they had their own processes, their own things. I also learned a lot of what not to do by what they were doing. Their model was get as many leads and sell as much as possible, and the service quality wasn't very good. So they would churn out clients pretty fast. So I learned a lot about that too. But working in an established agency does give, or any business that you're trying to get start, can give you a nice level of experience that takes a while to get to on your own. So then when I was finally ready to start my own, I had that built up. But I started freelancing first. I didn't just jump right to starting a business. I was pretty conservative too. So I started freelancing a little bit on the side, realized like, oh, you could just make money on your own just by getting clients and working directly with businesses. So I built that up. It took actually a couple of years to really build that up where it was significant. I waited till it like far outseated my income. I was very conservative. Looking back, I probably should have just made the move sooner to go all in, because once I did that, the growth started happening a lot faster. But I liked having the full time job, doing this on the side. I built it up quite a bit, and then eventually I was ready. I was like, I have enough revenue coming in and I've done it long enough that I felt confident like I could leave my job now and fully focus. And that was a big leap. Once I did that, I was able to do more marketing for myself, because when you're working full time, it's hard to also like market your own thing and put a lot of effort into it. So once you fully dedicate, then it takes off. And the beauty was you don't need any money to start with a service-based business like this. It's just the skill. So once you develop that skill, it's just your time. And then you start to realize if you want to scale, you run out of time pretty quickly. And that's when you have to start building a team and learning about business. But you can just start with a skill, which helped me a lot.
Okay. Okay. Oh man, there's so many good stuff, so many good things in that right there. Okay. So your main thing was working for the agency.
Yeah.
Okay. And you said retail before that. You're working for the agency. That was your 9 to 5, if you want to call it that,
Yeah.
right? And then you started freelancing on your own. How much were you making with your freelancing when you were like, okay, this is good enough, I can make that leap? What was that number for you?
So the full-time job at the time was making 75,000.
Okay.
And for the freelance work, I wanted to basically be at double before I felt safe leaving. And that's where I was basically at, about 150 in revenue. Wow. I didn't have a ton of expenses at that time because I was doing everything. So then I felt, okay, I could lose a few clients and still have enough where I have more income coming in than what I would have had with my full-time job. You do lose the full-time job income. So there is a little bit of a hit when you lose that, because that's just coming in steady where yeah, you don't necessarily have that on the business side. Yeah. But yeah, I waited till about double. I probably would have done the move sooner though, looking back. Not like where you can go with it, but yeah, it took me a while to actually make the leap.
That's funny. I hear people say that all the time. Like hindsight's 2020, yeah. And when you get to that point, you're like, oh, I could have done that, but you just don't have that confidence level yet.
Yeah,
it's scary.
Especially you have bills, you have different things. It's hard to be like, okay, I'm going to go all in on this when you have all that built up. And then I think once you do make the leap, you start to see, okay, yeah, I don't need to rely on a job really. It's not really that much more secure than working for yourself anyway. At the end of the day, you can get fired at any point. You could get laid off. Mm-hmm. So I like now being in control of where I go with it, instead of relying on someone else that kind of dictates what's going to happen. But it does take the confidence, I think, is a key point. Mm-hmm. Because looking back, I could have made the leap too early and I didn't have the confidence built up to continue when things get hard, because there's definitely ups and downs. So yeah, I think that's key.
Yeah, and then you hit on that point of you didn't have a lot of expenses because you were doing everything. You didn't have a team. It was all you. So you were able to keep that tight and be able to focus on just the lean startup necessities, if you will.
And that's really the beauty of that kind of business, is there's very little expenses, a little bit of software that you need, and everything else is just time and your energy, basically. Mm-hmm. So that helped me a lot get started, because I didn't have any money to invest and get started with a larger company or an acquisition. So I really had to go. I wasn't even really necessarily thinking I would start a business. I was just making a little bit of money on the side, realizing, oh, I could do freelance work. And then once it started to build, that's when I started to realize more, okay, I could actually probably turn this into something. But yeah, that's really how I started to focus on it.
Okay. So if people are tracking here, the process was saw a video on SEO and thought that was pretty cool. Yeah. Got connected with an agency. The agency taught you really everything that you knew. You decided to do some freelance work on your own. You built that up until it was double what you were making, yeah. And you had the confidence to make that jump. You made the jump. You were still doing everything on your own until you were able to gather what you needed to build a team and to delegate, and where you were making enough where you could afford to do that.
And that was a limiting belief I had for a while, was I like to do everything myself. And I was like, oh, it's more of a pain in the ass to manage somebody and teach them and have to. Then I'm spending most of my time managing and not really doing, which at the time, like, I loved SEO. That was my main thing I liked to do. As I evolved, I realized I like business more. And then that's when I started to learn more about actually running a company, building a business, all the different components of that. And that got me excited again to keep progressing. So that's when I realized, okay, I should start building out a team. So I started with kind of like more entry level people that I was able to train and get the work like 70 to 80% of the way there. And I could put the finishing touches on it, mm-hmm. which opens up a lot of time. Then I realized like I should have someone communicating with clients. So I started to build in like an account manager and a project manager to manage all the tasks that we have to do each month. So that took a lot of that off my plate. And then now I'm trying to layer in, like, how do I bring in more senior level people to get to the next level where I could fully pull myself out of the service. So that's the tipping point I'm at now, where I'm not big enough yet to fully get someone at the level that I can count on just to basically run the service. But we're getting close to the point where we have to start figuring that out to really get to the next level.
Dude, you are doing the thing. It's so cool to hear that progression that you've made. This is a time where you could even integrate EOS and do different things like that. That's
Yeah.
the level that you're at right now, which is really cool.
And that's what I'm realizing now, how important the operations are. Like even like SOPs and training and process, it was all really in my head until recently when we had to really start documenting it. That's again where niching down does help, because for storage, we have a very specific system that we know works, that we can implement, and it's repeatable. When we worked with every industry and did all this custom work, that's where really I had to be involved in everything, because there's just so much customization. Unless you have someone really senior that you're paying a lot of money to do that for you, which I wasn't at the level or comfortable enough to do that yet. Mm-hmm. So that's exactly where we're at now, where like operations are starting to be more important. And I'm really trying to figure out like, how do we take that next leap from where we're at now?
Okay, so you said a word earlier that got me excited because I love this word. It's acquisitions. And then you just mentioned storage. So let's jump into that.
Yeah.
There's something really cool that came up that we could have a whole episode just on this specific story. But before you talk about it, I want to intro it with, this is how important, for one, having a good niche is, or just having a niche in general. Yeah. And then the importance of the content that you create and the brand and network that comes with that. So you've niched down to storage, and something pretty cool happened from that is leading to one of my favorite words, acquisitions. So yeah, tell me this story here.
So part of my marketing for storage was to put out a lot of educational videos and basically just teach exactly how I do SEO and Google ads, so people could watch the videos and essentially do it themselves for their own facilities. So YouTube's been one of the main platforms, and Google search directly. So every like self-storage marketing keyword, I either have a video or a blog article or something that teaches people how to do SEO, Google ads, marketing, everything. And I'm getting now to the point where we're getting a lot of inbound leads from that. And I came up with a new model that I was working on, where, because I really want to get into storage as an investor, as an owner. So I had the idea of, instead of just charging for marketing, an option where I partner with someone and I cover all the marketing costs and do it essentially for free, do the work, cover the ad spend, and in exchange we partner on the deal. Uh-huh. So I had someone who found me through a YouTube video. He has an existing facility, found my video, had a bunch of questions on how he can improve his SEO and ads that he was running. And then we talked about it and we came up with that he's actually evaluating a facility in Texas, and he thought it would be a perfect fit for this kind of arrangement, because the facility is stuck at 10% occupancy and the guy's losing about $4,000 to $5,000 a month. So we structured the deal by basically doing a 6-month where we're going to take over the management. We're going to manage it day to day. We're going to do the marketing, take all the inbound calls, respond to everybody. And we have the option to buy it at any point within the 6 months. So it was like a nice mixture of reducing our risk. If we take it over and we can't lease it out, we could just walk away. And we also agree on the price now before we do the work to make it more valuable. So it all came together on this one, where it was like a facility that needs marketing badly, and then getting like an inbound lead that we could ultimately partner with.
Oh man, like I'm like salivating with all these things here. It's so cool. So first of all, it's like a consulting for equity sort of situation with you, which is really neat. And that just shows like how important having a skill is, right? Because your equity that you're putting in is the time, the energy, the experience that you have doing what you do, which is going to make the facility money. So you're making the facility money, you're bringing clients in, you're improving so many aspects of it, and that's your equity, and that's super cool.
And I think that's a good takeaway. Starting to think about what skills do you have, and then how can you leverage that in some way. With storage, it was clear, okay, the marketing is definitely a big need. It's a core part of the storage business. It's like, why shouldn't I, instead of just doing a traditional agency model where I'm just getting paid for the service, why shouldn't I go the route of actually trying to partner on the deals? And and the value is like, the partner I have doesn't have a marketing background. He's got a real estate background, a business background. So in this scenario with this facility, marketing is going to be critical. So having that skill set, and it's hard just to hire someone for it. If he were to do the deal alone and just try to pay someone to do the marketing, he has that additional expense now. He's got to cover the loss that's happening from the facility plus pay for marketing, and then not necessarily know. It's hard to hire someone if you don't really know enough about it. So like having a partner level person who's going to care and put effort into it is should be a good arrangement. So we have a verbal agreement. We'll see if the contract works for this one, but hopefully we'll have some good news soon.
Was it you that brought that up? Was that your idea, bringing it up to him? You're like, hey, like I can help you with this, but let's make this sort of agreement. Or was it him that was like, hey, I need your help. Would you consider having equity in the deal based on the skill set that you're bringing?
So I pitched the idea. I've been working on this the last couple of months of thinking about like how to position that and like how to talk about it actually. And it's working out. Like for him, he's a real estate investor. So after I pitched the idea to him, it resonated pretty well. He's like, yeah, I was actually thinking of something like that instead of just having to pay a lot of money each month for the service. So that one, just everything aligned on that one. I've only pitched it a few other times. So I'm still refining it and figuring out like what situations it makes sense. There's some that it doesn't make sense. So once I think I have a better grasp on that, it should be a good source of deals, I'm hoping.
Yeah, like just to know that's an opportunity is huge. You know, whatever your skill set might be, people coming in with all sorts of different backgrounds is thinking past that one skill, thinking past the quick cash, and okay, what future value can I bring to this opportunity? And look, yeah, just looking long term. And you saw that and you jumped on that, and I think there's going to be more coming.
I think that's a great point about short term cash versus long term. That's what, because I would make more money getting the money and having him pay me for marketing right now, at least in the short term. But you don't have the equity you're building up. Like essentially with this facility, we're going to unlock a lot of value in the facility just from leasing it up. So that idea is like that will end up being way more than he could have paid me just for the service. So that's where being an owner and actually leveraging your skills. And it's something that I think will differentiate me. There's a lot of other agencies that offer marketing services for storage, but I don't know if any of them are actually willing to become an owner and partner on deals. They just want to do the traditional agency model, which there's nothing wrong with. Yeah. So that also is giving me a little bit of an edge in the market, even for marketing services. When people hear, oh, I'm actively trying to get in it, I believe in what I'm doing so much that I want to buy my own facilities and just do it for myself. Mm-hmm. So that kind of positioning is, if you could find that in your market in some way of showing you're different from everybody else, like you really love this industry, you're in it, you want to grow and do things, I think that's been helping a lot the last few months.
Another example on a different level of essentially what you're doing is Alex Hormozi, right? Where he has acquisitions.com, and people will, at this point now, like they want to be part of that.
They want to work with them.
And he brings his sales, marketing, advertising, he grows your business from X to Y in exchange for equity. Yeah. So he brings that in, and that's his acquisitions.com business model.
Yeah, that's the exact model. And I think that's actually where the idea originally sparked too, was from watching some of the stuff he's doing and then figuring out, okay, how do I replicate that in this niche that I'm now focused in? And everything aligned for that, where storage is like an investment type of business where a lot of people want to put money in, they want to buy facilities. And then the marketing is such a key component where when I partner on the deal, I'm bringing that marketing knowledge, the process, the systems. We've done it for hundreds of other facilities. So you're bringing all that experience into it and then ultimately making it more value. And what I liked about what he did, he talked about roll-ups. And that concept has been pretty interesting to me. Instead of just doing an agency service, you're rolling up all these facilities that you control and building out that portfolio. And now the value you're creating is way more than you could do just from an agency. So a lot of things I think that he gets into that are always interesting to go to.
Oh, yeah. Oh, seriously. Yeah. And yeah, talking about roll-ups, that's just another level of being really niche in a market is, okay, you control this market and then you start bringing other little businesses in to your holdco, essentially.
And I really like that idea. Like part of the vision I have for this too is we're starting with marketing, but I would like to eventually, when we have enough facilities, almost be able to do everything in-house. So we have marketing down now, but how do we become experts at property management and running the facilities? How do we actually make our own websites and software potentially even, and having all of that in-house and custom? Because then you get the cost savings, like everything. When I do marketing for myself, I'm just paying the cost. There's no markup. There's no margin that needs to be made. So that kind of thing of building this whole in-house kind of machine for all these different services we'd have to hire out for. Then we have this big competitive advantage versus other people that are just using vendors for everything.
Yeah.
So that's where I want to get to with this. We start with marketing, and then how do we actually get into the full cycle of storage of every part, basically every aspect.
Bro, I love it. And the coolest part is that you started just like on your own freelancing, and now it's built into something where you might be a vendor here at this conference one day. Like that's a goal, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly. Now that we have the niche and the focus, this is exactly the kind of thing you can do. You go to these in-person events, which I've been focused heavily on digital because I found everybody else is still focused on just traditional and these events. But this is something I definitely have to add into what I'm doing because
Mm-hmm.
you do get a lot of business. The networking and everything in person is different than just doing online.
Yeah.
So I started with just the online marketing because I know that's what I do and no one else is really doing it in storage. But that's the next level too. Now we have revenue coming in, we have clients, we have case studies, now starting to do these kind of events, speaking, and all those kind of things I think will be good for the next level of growth.
Cool. Bringing it back home, I wish I could summarize SEO and teach somebody how
Yeah.
to do it, but I can't. Hopefully, this interview will help a little bit. But if somebody wanted to get started, just like you did with an agency, are you hiring right now?
So we're always looking for people. So anyone that does SEO, Google Ads, really any phase of marketing, analytics, definitely reach out to me. I think we're always looking for people. We always have part-time roles, contractors we bring in, freelancers. So definitely we do have a training program too. So even if you're just starting out, it's still worth reaching out and having a conversation. And if you're more experienced, we definitely want to hear from you guys as well.
Okay. Okay. And then the biggest takeaway, I'll hit this again, is you went hard on a niche. You became an expert in that area. You started producing content, really focusing on that. And from there, you've built a connection where you're just about to acquire a facility just from the skill and the experience that you have. Super, super cool.
Yeah, just from I didn't know learning watching a YouTube video
Yeah.
10, 15 years ago that it would help me acquire a storage facility, but it's funny how those things work and the kind of all the stars align as you start dedicating to whatever you're focused on.
Dude, so wild. Okay, so if anyone wants to contact you, ask you any questions, even apply for a position of some kind, how can they best contact you?
Yeah, so assetgrowthagency.com is the marketing agency website. So you could reach me there. I'm also active on YouTube. It's just my name, John Reinish. And then LinkedIn is pretty good too. If you find me on LinkedIn, I usually see a lot of the messages there. So just shoot me a message and we'll go from there.
Right on, dude.
Awesome.